In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro discusses various threats facing America, including the threat of fiscal collapse, foreign aggression, and internal moral collapse. He highlights the national debt, the unsustainable economic system, and the potential need to increase taxes, cut benefits, or inflate the currency. He also discusses the threat of foreign aggression, particularly in light of the changing global landscape and the potential for American power to recede. Additionally, Shapiro addresses the threat of internal moral collapse, citing the decline of communities, local institutions, and population growth as contributing factors. Shapiro also delves into the polarized politics in America, particularly the increasing division between Republicans and Democrats. He discusses the views of James Carville, a Democratic political strategist, who characterizes the Republican Party as a Christian nationalist party, equating it to a threat similar to al-Qaeda. Shapiro critiques Carville's characterization, highlighting the divisive nature of such rhetoric and the impact it has on American society. The podcast also touches on the 2024 election and the challenges facing President Joe Biden. Shapiro discusses the vulnerabilities of the Biden administration, particularly in relation to the economy, foreign policy, and corruption scandals. He highlights the impact of Biden's record on the economy, his personal foibles, and the potential implications of foreign policy decisions on his re-election efforts. In relation to foreign policy, Shapiro discusses the situation in Ukraine and the challenges facing the Biden administration in addressing the conflict with Russia. He critiques the lack of a clear strategy and the failure to negotiate a viable solution, leading to a stalemate with no clear off-ramp. Shapiro also addresses the White House's attempt to shift responsibility onto Congress for the lack of funding, highlighting the need for a comprehensive strategy and plan for accountability in providing aid to Ukraine. Shapiro then shifts his focus to the Israel-Hamas conflict, criticizing the administration for not supporting Israel's military efforts to defeat Hamas. He argues that the administration's approach is influenced by its desire to please its radical left-wing base, which he believes is misguided. He also points out the administration's failure to acknowledge the success of the Abraham Accords and the growing relationship between Israel and Saudi Arabia, which he sees as a significant development in the region. The discussion then turns to the media's coverage of the Israel-Hamas conflict, with Shapiro criticizing CNN and ABC News for their biased reporting. He argues that the media is attempting to establish a moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas, despite the clear differences in their actions and intentions. He also highlights the use of fake casualty numbers by Hamas to manipulate public opinion. Shapiro then discusses the U.S. response to attacks on commercial vessels in the Red Sea by Houthi rebels in Yemen, criticizing the Biden administration for downplaying the threat to U.S. forces. He argues that the administration's lack of deterrence is emboldening Iran-backed groups to launch attacks on U.S. forces in the region. Throughout the podcast, Shapiro emphasizes the need for a strong and clear U.S. foreign policy that prioritizes the interests of its allies, particularly Israel, and effectively deters aggression from hostile groups and nations. He also criticizes the administration for being influenced by its left-wing base and failing to take decisive action in response to international conflicts.